A cyclist travels downhill while accelerating uniformly at 1.5 or 1.5 meters per second squared. If the initial velocity at the top is that, find how far he travels in 8 seconds. Again, to summarize this question, he's accelerating at this, so meaning that the acceleration there is 1.5 meters per second squared, which is the same as saying 3/2 meters per second squared. That's the acceleration. If the initial velocity at the top is that, so meaning initial velocity is 3 meters per second per second, then find how far he travels in 8 seconds. So they want you to find the distance he travels when the time is 8 seconds. So how far he travels in 8 seconds. So now from our equations of motion, what we can use here, they want us to find the value of s. So if we use s is equal to ut plus a half at squared, so we want the value of s, so that's going to be u. Our initial velocity is 3 times time, which is 8, plus a half times our acceleration is 3/2 times time squared. Our value of t is 8, so it is 8 squared, and therefore when we sum all this up, we end up with 72 meters. So it means that in 8 seconds, this guy, the cyclist, will have traveled 72 meters, and that's our answer. Part B. So how far does he travel? Again, they're asking you how far does he travel. So they're asking for distance. How far does he travel before reaching a velocity of 7 meters per second? So what is the value of s when the final velocity v is 7 meters per second? So how far does he's going to travel? How far does he travel to reach this velocity, the final velocity? Remember, all this still, his initial velocity, according to the question, is 3 meters per second. So his initial velocity will still be 3 meters per second. And of course, he'll still be accelerating at the same level of 3/2 meters per second squared. That is according to the question. Now, of course, that he won't take the same time to reach this. So now still here, to get our value of s, we shall use v squared is equal to u squared plus 2as. That's going to be now our final velocity. There is 7 squared is going to be initial velocity, which is 3 squared plus 2 times the acceleration, which is 3/2 times the value of s we are looking for, which is that. So making s the subject of the formula here, s is going to become, this is 7 squared, this goes that way, it becomes minus 3 squared. That is, this 2 cancels with that 2, so all this is going to be divided by 3. So our value of s here becomes 40, because this is 49, minus 3 squared, which is 9, divide that by 3, we get you 40, divide that by 3, and so our value of s is 13.33 meters. So this is the distance he travels, that is how far he travels before reaching the velocity of 7 meters per second. Now a body moves along a straight line uniformly, increasing in velocity from 2 meters to 18 meters. So we are looking at a body. This is the body. It is moving, let's say it's moving from point A to point B. But they're telling us that it's moving in a straight line, uniformly increasing in velocity from 2 meters per second. So meaning that at this point, it is initial velocity where it starts from is going to be 2 meters per second. And it moves from that velocity to that velocity, so meaning that its final velocity v is going to be equal to 18 meters per second. And it is moving in a time interval of 10 seconds, so meaning that the time it's going to take is 10 seconds. There we will be being required to find the acceleration and the distance traveled. So here we are supposed to find the acceleration and the distance traveled. So again, from our equations of motion, to find the acceleration, we can just go on with the first equation of motion. To find the acceleration, we know that v is equal to u plus at. What is v? Our final velocity is 18. It's going to be initial velocity u, which is 2, plus our acceleration, which is A, times the time, which is 10 seconds, and then we shall end up having, when we're making A the subject of the formula, this 2 comes this side, it becomes 18 minus 2 is going to be equal to A times 10, which is 10A. Divide both sides by 10. So definitely this goes with that. You have your acceleration as 1.6. So therefore acceleration is 1.6 meters per second. That's the acceleration according to the answer. 1.6 meters per second. Now after finding our acceleration, we can now go ahead and find the distance traveled. And of course the distance traveled, which is S, this is part A. So to answer part B, the distance traveled S is going to give us be equal to UT plus a half AT squared. Now our initial velocity U is 2 meters per second, so it is 2 times our value of T, which is 10, plus a half times our acceleration, which we got here as 1.6, times time squared, our value of T is 10. 10 squared is 100. So to get our value of S here, when we put all this, sum this all up, you will get 100 meters. And that is our distance traveled from A to B.
This brings us to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. Feel free to check out other excellent videos on the channel and don't forget to subscribe. For Kisembo Academy, this is Arnold Rangakuramia helping you manifest excellence.